Good evening, and thank you for joining us on Public Affairs Public Access. I am Jenard Jenkins, Communications Director and Press Secretary of the Harris County Democratic Party. On behalf of HCDP Chair Lane Lewis, I welcome you to our discussion tonight and invite your participation by calling in with your questions and comments. Well, they are called by many names: Generation Y, the new boomers, millennials, Generation Next. This coming and rising generation of young people has already begun flexing its collective muscle, making waves in the global economy, worldwide humanitarian service, politics, and human and civil rights. They are not taking their time, waiting their turn, but with a fierce urgency, this generation is seizing its opportunity for leadership right now. Joining us later will be the presidents of the Student Government Associations of Texas Southern University and the University of Houston Downtown. I invited these distinguished gentlemen in because there's no one who can better define, or help at least try to define, what generation now is more than the heads of these two student bodies of these distinguished universities. It's interesting because we decided to examine this question because we're dealing with an undefined group. You know, we had the baby boomers, and baby boomers gave birth to Generation X, of which I am a part, and then the birth of Generation Y. What defines them? What is it that makes them unique? And when the two gentlemen get here, they will help us answer those questions. We're talking about a group who has spent the majority of their lives basically growing up in a country that's been at war. September 11, 2001 gave birth to the Iraqi War, which began in March in 2003. And 1 month after 9/11, we engaged in military action in Afghanistan. You have to wonder what impact this is going to have on young people of this coming generation, having spent half of their developmental years basically with a country that's been in military conflict. You also have to decide what is going to be the impact on this particular generation when they're watching uncertainty unlike we've seen in two generations. They're living in a time where on their TV screens you have just unheralded attacks that are going on all around the world in what was at one point considered to be safe and civilized territory. We're talking about the capital of France being under attack and held seized by Islamic terrorists. Or is it proper to call them Islamic terrorists? How best to define this group that has taken the stage away from Al-Qaeda and taken the leadership in worldwide terrorism? You see this flashed on your TV every night, and then you see these groups that are growing in the Middle East, and you wonder, do they feel secure? Do they feel safe in this world as some of us were able to enjoy in the world that we grew up in? It's a complicated group. Basically, we're talking about a group of individuals with economic power that we have never seen before. We've seen a group that's been immobilized by social issues, and the likes of which we have not seen since the generation of the 1960s. It's an interesting group, and helping us to define that group right now, we have from the University of Houston Downtown, the president of their Student Government Association, Mr. John Locke. How you doing, Mr. Locke?
Doing great, and yourself?
I'm doing very, very well. Well, thank you for joining us.
It's my pleasure. It's my pleasure.
So tell me, we've had pundits, and I've done a lot of research, and we've gone through professors. Everybody wants to try to define your generation, and it's been difficult for us to do it, and I'm sure it's not the easiest thing for you to do, but just give us some insight on your peers. What is it like walking around your campus at the University of Houston Downtown? What do you see? What would be the things that make that culture defined?
One thing that I've noticed that kind of defines our culture, or just the youth in general right now, is a distrust for the government.
Really?
Yeah, distrust for government, politicians, all those things have negative connotations with them, with people. So when we reach out to the youth about voting, they're like, what for? What's the point?
Right.
You know? But I do feel a sense of, kind of similar to the 60s or whatever, where people are really getting active in the communities and really want to know about, social injustice and all these different issues that that are popping up here as of recent. And it's probably been here for years now.
Absolutely. You know, what's interesting is that we have President of the United States, Barack Obama, and in 2012, his percentage of voting amongst youth voters, 18 to 29, the percentage actually increased. So there was actually more people who voted for the president in 2012 than in 2008. And the most interesting statistic that I read was that if Mitt Romney had have just simply split the youth vote 50-50, that he would be president of the United States right now. That's how important your voting bloc is. So when you say that there's a distrust in government, it's very, very key. Can you tell us why? What are the things that have turned off that small percentage or the growing percentage of voters who feel disenfranchised, who are in that Generation Now group?
Well, that's interesting that you say that. So I think the issue is being real about the United States and being real about our history and past. You know, we go through, elementary, middle school, high school, and we have these ideals about America and why we made certain decisions about going to war and what was like the motive behind that. And then you get in your later years in college and you learn that everything wasn't so bright and cheery, right? Everything, there was, money and things of that nature that's been motivators. And when it's kind of like, believing in Santa Claus, and then you find out, oh, well, Santa Claus is not real and Santa Claus is not true, right? So that builds a distrust right there because, we had, different said motivations for going into countries in the past, right, and trying to, stop communism and stop these different things. And then we come in now and, we have, these different issues going on around the country, and it's, all these different cultures and different ideas. It's hard to, try to implement our way of thinking specifically to these other countries and these different cultures that was raised and grown up in a different way, right? And they have different ideas about America, right?
Right.
So our history of America is a lot different from, like, let's say China's history of America, right?
Yes.
And we act, we're confused, like, well, why does everyone hate Americans? Why do people dislike America? What we don't understand is that the history that's being taught over here is different than a history from over there.
Right.
In different
and see,
places.
that's something that's unique to you all's generation, is because, we didn't grow up with the internet, and they used to always say that at some point, you're going to be able to connect with somebody on the other side of the globe. That was fantasy for us. That was something that was, in the distant, and you guys have grown up with that. I mean, you log onto a computer and you are connected with India. You are connected with Europe. You are connected with Africa. So is there out of that an idea that you are in some ways, I guess, in sync with somebody that's on the other side of the world in the way that we, probably never could have understood at the time?
And I definitely think we take those things for granted because, we're born into this connection with the world, right?
Right.
And it's hard for me to even imagine not being connected to the world.
Uh-huh.
So that's just a different perspective altogether. I think how they describe the previous generations. Someone mentioned to me that in previous generations they're described of being like acceptant of diversity, acceptant of diversity, and where our generation we celebrate diversity.
Ah, that's good. That's good. And that's definitely true because, we see that, amongst that, current, youth group as defined, by 100,000 definitions, but, there's a whole lot more tolerance. And obviously, as time goes by, you have certain things that kind of, societal things that kind of wear away, like, groupthink kind of changes over time. And, is it maybe the rise of social media? Is that it? Is knowing that I may be a little bit different, but there's somebody out there like me? Does that kind of, help?
Definitely. I mean, we see the humanity in everybody because we're able to connect with them. Like, we're following on Twitter and the big, with Iran when they were doing the big movement over there trying to bring democracy and over there. And, we saw that, we were live, we were interacting with them. We're getting tweets and all these different things. And it definitely allows us to connect more with other parts of the world and be more sympathetic to the issues that they're dealing with because we're getting so much live instant information, instant gratification. That's probably this generation's instant gratification.
Now, you would think with that you would need a little bit more, I guess, a closer contact with your representatives and, I guess figuring out exactly what their philosophies are with regard to not just getting reelected, but in terms of, what impact they're going to have in terms of representing your voice in D.C. and around the world. Is there a prevailing idea that, I don't know, just to quote, these people don't represent us? Is that kind of a,
Well, it takes a lot of research to really get down to the heart of what people are doing for you and we're not doing for you, and it takes an understanding of the process itself. So if you don't understand how the government works, if you don't understand these different variables in these decisions that are being made, then it's hard for you to really grasp that, for me, it took me a while, to really, get involved. But once I got involved and I saw, that we actually can make changes, we actually can make a difference with our vote, then, I was sucked in, and now, I find myself being more involved in political, processes and being more civically engaged. Our university, we hosted a walk to vote this previous election cycle. And we had over about 400 students that marched together as one to vote, as one voice. And that's a big thing, because sometimes people they haven't voted before, right? They think it will be complicated. But when you have a friend that's going with you that's voting, it makes it that much easier. And once you get your foot in the door, if you've done it once, it becomes easier. You don't have these, these doubts and suspicions or whatever, and you're able to do it again. Yep. So I think getting that one vote, getting that first start, getting your feet wet into it, and then it gradually grows from there, I believe.
Definitely. Now, we're already, we're just in a society now where, we're just in continual elections. We just got through with a midterm election. Now we're already talking about 2016. And I'm wondering, the Democrats, knock to us, is that have held, a pretty good ground with the youth voters. And the GOP thinks it can possibly make inroads depending on who they nominate as their candidate for president in 2016. And they really feel like they could, put out a message or put out a candidate that's going to, entice some youth voters to go away from the Democrats and go over to them. And I was wondering what your thoughts were with regard to what you've heard so far in terms of the early candidates on both the Democratic and the Republican side. I think right now most people, presume that our nominee is going to be Hillary Clinton. Just your initial thoughts about her being on the ballot. Let's just say she goes ahead and wins our nomination, and she is one of the two people who is running who is going to occupy the White House in January of 2017. What do you think about her right now?
About her right now, I'll be highly concerned as far as the youth is concerned with her. And
Tell me why.
And I say this because, just in marketing and being in touch with everything that's going on, it's my understanding she doesn't have a Facebook page yet. And even our Republican counterparts are they have 2 million, 3 million followers and all these things, so they're connecting with people.
Right.
And this is time that's being wasted where you're not connecting. It's funny that I'm saying, well, this person have a Facebook page. They're probably not,
Yeah.
But that's today's world we live in.
Right.
And especially with the youth, this is how we communicate with one another now. It's beyond text messaging. It's instant messaging, right, on Facebook. And we follow people and what they do on social media. So I think it's very important that, if she's going to seriously consider running for president, needs to start now and definitely get working on social media. I believe Obama has some innovative ideas as far as like with text messaging and using these different avenues in order to reach people. And Republicans obviously are going to catch on to that, right?
Definitely. Use that as the blueprint.
Exactly. So the blueprint's been made, and we need to follow it. And that's Facebook. That's one of the more popular ones. But there's all type of social media networks and different avenues where you have these different groups of people where you're able to communicate, interact with, and to humanize the people that are running for office.
Right.
And I think that's key, because people want to be able to connect with somebody. They want to be able to understand, somebody and have, I guess, empathy for that person, regardless of, what they're going through as far as, campaigning and all these different things, and the trash and mud throwing that gets thrown in there. But really need someone that you can connect with. We're in the age of connection, the age of connecting to other parts of the world, right? I can connect to someone in China or someone in Brazil or whatever. So it's very precarious that we're not able to connect with someone that's a potential candidate for president.
Definitely. And you're thinking that, if there's a connection, there may be a, slight, problem with someone who's, almost 70 years old trying to connect with an 18-year-old voter. So just to kind of project, if she were to be the Democratic nominee, do you think that would put more pressure on her to say, name a running mate who's, maybe much younger, or, just somebody who can try to, bring in that youth group?
Probably best Hispanic male. Probably,
Julian Castro, we're talking to
yeah.
him. I hope he's listening.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, that would be key of who our vice president would be, and how's it balanced, her the strengths that she has in comparison. You need someone else that has, that kind of balance the strengths and weaknesses of that candidate, and hope. I'm sure, they're already looking into it and researching and finding potential candidates. And there are a lot of good ones. And you mentioned one, probably the key ones.
Yeah. Hope he's listening. If there were a Republican candidate right now that you think that could resonate at all, even in the slightest, with youth voters, that you could, and I'm speaking of Rand Paul, I'm speaking of Mitt Romney, who's there are rumors that he's going to try again, Jeb Bush. Is there anyone out there, any name out there that you think could possibly, maybe that person can make inroads, that person can make that connection? Or is it all, we'll wait and see?
Actually, I think it's Mitt Romney.
You think Romney can come back again?
The fact, well, he probably wouldn't win a nomination with his own party, but it's because his party has been kind of bad-mouthing him. I saw some video, clips, and, everybody is just like, oh, he's a loser, we don't want him. And I'm like, wow. And I think that, that may have a different effect on people than what might be assumed, right?
Right.
It may humanize him some to people and allow people to connect with them. It's like, man, all these people talking bad and riding your back on losing and all these different things, and they kind of respect, and if he still runs with all that, that's something to respect. Like, when everyone's turned against you, what do you do?
Yes, and that is true, because I know when I was younger, I was always kind of somebody who was for the underdog.
Always.
If you're hey, wait,
I hated the Bulls.
Exactly.
I hated
Come on, I
despise.
Can we get anybody else? Yeah. So
yeah.
if Mitt Romney can, capitalize on that, then maybe, he'll make some inroads. But I was thinking that, it was possible that you could be looking at a couple of candidates that come out of the Republican side that were kind of like President Obama that you've never heard about. Maybe there's kind of, okay, Chris Christie, I know who these people are. But if there's somebody who's out there that we have not heard of, do you think that with the Republican message that you have heard in the past, do you think that if you put a face on it, a youthful face, a young face, a fresh face on it, that'll help the message if you change the messenger? Or is it
No, the message? They're very disconnected with the youth and what we care about,
Right.
We care about inclusion and things in nature. We care about, like, the poor and trying to, keep everything at an even playing field, right?
Right.
When you disenfranchise, people that want to have, like, gay marriages and things like that, I just don't think it's possible.
Yeah.
I don't see it unless someone just, like, changes their views on that. But then they wouldn't make them Republican, right?
No way that they're going to win the primary.
Republicans as a whole have to reevaluate, their stances on a lot of things, and it's just antidated at this point. Their views, they're losing views. But the thing is, we don't have enough young people voting. We don't have enough Hispanic votes. Not enough people are going out to vote. If a larger percentage of the youth it wouldn't be a chance. The Republicans wouldn't have a chance ever.
So if we were to get into that, what do you think it is that the political parties are not doing to make that connection? Is it that, you know, every night you turn on your TV, it's D versus R, and you guys are just turned off by that, and that's it. It doesn't matter. You're just arguing. You're going back and forth. You know what? I'm tuned out of it. Is it that the wanting to vote and the responsibility of doing so just isn't there in that way? What is it? What do you think?
If I was going to run for president or for a high office or something, I would not put on videos or commercials and things bashing the other candidate or saying anything about them. I wouldn't even put on videos or any of those, you know, marketing things to vote for me. I would tell them to vote. I would just tell them simply to vote. I don't care who you vote for, but be involved. Just get out there and vote. That's what we need. We need an accurate representation of the population and what they feel here. So it's not as important who you vote for. It's important that you get involved in the process. And me being, you know, a Democrat would believe in that process. And once they get in that process and see our views compared to the other ones, that it will work itself out.
Right. So you're figuring that if you had a candidate that was out there who did not seem to be already, I guess, you know what, I've got my ideas in stone, this is what I'm gonna be, now vote for me because of this. If you had a candidate out there, ideally, who was just simply, look, I'm about you coming out and voting, regardless of whether you vote for me or not, and I am going to talk to the people on the other side of the aisle. You know, they're not my enemy. You know, we may have a different philosophy on how to get things done, but if we meet somewhere in the middle, then, you know, that'll be a more attractive candidate for youth voters.
Yeah, and the challenge to be able to do that is you have to deal with these primaries and stuff like that. So you can't lose your support from, you know, your foundation.
You're absolutely right.
So
they'll push you right or they'll push you left, and you have to go to that extreme.
Exactly.
And when you make it to the general,
then you look like a hypocrite.
Exactly.
Then you go into the general and you try to adjust more to the middle, and then it's like, whoa, you just said this here and this here. Happened to Mitt Romney, right?
Definitely.
It's exactly what happened, right? So I don't know. It's set up in such a way it's hard to do that, right? It's hard to do that, to be able to win a primary, and you know, it's too far-fetched to think an independent is going to come in there and be able to get it. So, I mean, it's the rules that we have that we're forced to play by right now.
Right.
Until we can figure out a way around that.
Right.
It's going to be continually probably more the same because it's set in that way. It's kind of a machine set that way. And I don't know how. I can't think of a way to break through that right now.
Now, I don't want you to do this anytime soon because I don't want to lose my job, but do you think that there is going to come a time when we don't need political parties? Don't do it now because I like my job.
Yeah, right.
But do you think there's going to come a time? I mean, because like I said, you guys are going to, I mean, you're flexing your muscle now, but you guys are going to be in charge of this process completely. Do you think that this idea, since it's pervasive amongst, you know, younger voters, that they're going to say, you know what? We're not going Democrat, we're not going Republican. Basically what we're going to do is we're just going to go individual. What does the individual stand for? What is that candidate? And I will vote for him, and I'm not worried about his affiliation. You think we're going to get to that point where we do away with political parties?
Well, you know, there's an issue with that too, because remember we talked about all the information you have to absorb, right? So having this two-party system, there's pros and cons, right? So the pros would be that, okay, someone's in this party, I have an idea of how they think. And what they support, right? You don't have to investigate, you know, every single, you know, you got a pretty much foundation, and in things where they don't agree, that it usually comes out, right? And they discuss why they don't agree with this view or that view.
Exactly.
So it kind of simplifies, I guess, the process for the people that are voting, because it's like, well, they're Republican or Democrat for a reason, right? It's because there's certain views in there that they agree with. If you have where there's no party at all, right? There's no parties at all, and you're just dealing with all these individuals. Think of all the people that run for president, right? There's, I mean, there's tons of people. You know, you got, you know, Trump and all these, you know.
Yeah.
And
circus. I mean,
and that's a lot of information. That's a lot of information to try to gather. You know, what do you think about this view, this view, this view? What is your plan? You know, it's a lot of information. So it's almost an information overload, and where people are like, oh, I don't want to. It's like another test.
Yeah,
it's like writing another essay or something.
Yeah.
And then people don't. You know, they're just like, it'll be okay. It'll work itself out. And complacency.
Definitely. I'm going to take this call. Caller, do you have a comment or a question?
Yes, mainly a comment. I heard you discussing Hillary Clinton and her potential, et cetera, and the vice presidency, et cetera. I'd like to think that she needs someone like John Edwards without the baggage. Y'all take that up and get back with me. Thank
Okay.
you. Have a great evening.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, so let's take John Edwards. I mean, the guy was youthful. He was a good-looking guy until everything fell apart. He was seen as a family man. He was ideological. He had energy. Basically, he was, you know, a Barack Obama in 2008 before the controversy happened. So Hillary Clinton is able to pull in a John Edwards without the baggage type of a candidate to run on the ticket. And let's just say, and to tie it into what we were talking about, let's just say that person says, you know what, I'm an independent. You know, I'm on the Democratic ticket, but I am of independent mind.
I think that would be really good.
You think that would be good?
I actually think that would be really good.
Yeah.
That would be really smart.
Yeah.
That would be really smart because you get people that's in the middle and you pull them in. You
Right.
pull them in that way. And, you know, a lot of things, you know, Americans, they're tired of the bickering between the parties. They're just tired of it. They're tired of inaction from Congress. They're tired of it. They're tired of just politics as usual. Someone needs to come and think outside the box.
Right.
You have to think outside the box because the way things have been going, people are not happy with it.
Right.
They're just not happy. They're not happy, and it causes like people, like younger people, it's just like whatever.
And there was this thought that in 2016, because people, you know, went way outside of the box and, you know, with President Obama, that they're going to just go with the generic candidate. You know, just give me any, you know, Republican, give me any Democrat, and that person is going to automatically win the White House. You think that there are inroads to be made if you had a unique candidate, even in 2016, because that thirst for something new and for something different is still there.
Yeah, I mean, you would think it would be having a woman president, you know, the first woman president, right? But everybody's kind of already become, with Hillary, it's just it's president. It's almost as if she was already president, right? And we already went through that first woman president. Mm-hmm. So it's not it doesn't have that, I guess, shock factor. It doesn't have that,
That's
you know,
a good point.
pull. So it's been diluted over the years already because everyone's been talking about it.
Right. It would be more, oh, look, we have an opportunity to elect a woman president, if it were not Hillary Clinton, who we've seen for 30 years.
Yeah.
I mean, that is actually a good point, which is one of the reasons why there was a lot of momentum behind Senator Elizabeth Warren out of Massachusetts.
Oh, yeah.
And, you know, so far she says she's not going to run. There are a lot of people out there who hopes that she changes her mind, but you know, you think that if she, you know, actually threw her hat into the ring, that she would be a formidable opponent?
She would be very formidable.
Yeah,
that would be a very powerful, yes, definitely. I mean, just her story and just what she's been through and everything, it would be very powerful.
Definitely.
I definitely think that she could pull the voters out, but you got to be careful how you do your primaries and come to, you know.
Exactly.
Don't be wishy-washy because as soon as they see that, oh, you're just one of them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? She gets the benefit of the doubt until she ruins that.
Exactly. In other words, you know, try to do your best to stay unique. Don't go
just do
and start
you.
uttering, you know, the general.
What is something that I mean, we hear in the youth today? This a common phrase: keep it real.
Yeah.
Everybody hears that, keeping it real.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I guess people don't get it. And maybe the other generation don't get what that, you know, what we mean by that. It means like keep it real, meaning generally most people don't. A lot of people don't keep it real because they believe the benefits outweighs the consequence of lying, right?
Right.
Or being ingenuine. But if you forget about the consequences of saying exactly how you feel, if you keep it real, people are going to connect with that. People connect with truth.
Right.
When you hear something that's true, there's something that resonates, you know inside of you when it's true. And that's what we connect with. We say it every day. Man, I keep it real. Or oh, yeah, man, you need to keep it real. Be more real about things. Be you. Be real.
Say what you think.
We say these all the time. These are you know, phrases we use constantly on a daily basis. So we're telling them what we want. We want someone to keep it real.
Right.
Regardless of the consequences of the information that you're giving out.
Definitely.
Because keeping it real is more important than those consequences.
Definitely. And rolling back to 2012, is that it was interesting is that President Obama was seen as being more authentic, meaning we really believed that,
We did.
you know, what he said, he actually stood for. And Romney's problem was that he was unable to connect, because it's like, yeah, or do you really
wanna keep-
really mean what you say? You know, it's like give us who you really are. And if you let us take a look at who you really are, then maybe he would have had a chance. I'm glad that he didn't. But it's like, you know, the problem was authenticity, and you know, he had that problem. I'm going to take another caller.
Hello.
How you doing?
I'm well. What people don't what the ruling class doesn't understand is you cannot get a freaking Vicodin from your doctor anymore. You have to go to a pain specialist instead of your family doctor. These pain specialists is like, yeah, you'll get your medication easily if you have the common sense to drive into a tree with your car. But if you're like an autoimmune person, this is where you're at now, and I don't appreciate it. And I know this is the president, and it's also the Republicans. They believe in this. But they just made themselves an enemy of the working people. I mean, you cannot get a Vicodin. They're forcing you to take 200 ibuprofen every 8 days.
Okay.
I mean, that's the problem. I'll hang up. Thank you.
Okay, well, that brings us to an interesting topic. Let's kind of touch on the Affordable Care Act. Let's touch on that just a little bit. At its heart, it basically says, you know what, if you don't have insurance, we feel like it's a fundamental human right to be able to seek health coverage.
Makes sense.
That's at its heart. And it got caught up in all the, you know, mundane political machinations that go through in Washington, D.C. to get it done. If I were to propose to you that you yourself, responsible, you have a job, you know, are taking care of your family, your job provides your health insurance, but I say to you, John, what I'm going to need you to do is I'm going to need you to give me $5 a month. $5 a month because this person over here does not have health coverage. Basically, this is what the Affordable Care Act is saying. You're fine, we're great, we're happy about that, but we're gonna need you to kick in a little bit of what, you know, you have already given us. And in other words, we're not taking any extra. What you have paid to the federal government, some of it is gonna be earmarked to go to health coverage for somebody who doesn't have it at its heart. The Republican argument would be, hey, you know what? My job is not to take care of a person who didn't do what I did in order to, you know, not have to seek out government health insurance. So you have, and I really do wish that we would have been able to have that debate instead of the, you know, the ridiculousness of death panels and all of those things. So just in your, you know, personal thoughts about, you know, where you see the line being between helping somebody out and them taking personal responsibility, where do you fall with that? What do you think? What do you think that this new generation is thinking in terms of being my brother's keeper? What do you think about that?
I mean, I think that's great. I think we should help each other out. I mean, that's what we're here for. That's the mantra of the United States, right? Helping other people, helping people that can't help themselves. Like that is what we've stood for, or at least the idea of what we stood for a long time. You know, these citizens here are being treated unfairly. People are being killed and stuff. Oh, we need to go intervene. We can't intervene with our own people that are dying and sick and can't. Look, myself, I never was able to go to the hospital, the doctor, to get like preventative care or anything like that. Only time I went to the doctor is if I went to the emergency room and it was already to the extreme. Now with the Affordable Care Act, you know, I enrolled to the marketplace. I get insurance now for $0.01 a month. Mm-hmm. And that's amazing. That's great. And that is, I mean, that is a great feeling to know that I can go to the doctor and get preventative care. I can go to the dentist and have my teeth checked. You know, right. These basic human needs, right? I mean, right. We recognize these are basic human needs. I mean, and how do we put like a price on life, I guess, you know?
Definitely.
We have people, there's things that could have been, and what is, I think it's also lost on that is that they can't turn you down anymore. So when you get this, you know, blown out cancer deal that's going to be really expensive to try to maintain your life.
Can't do that. Pre-existing condition. No,
yeah.
Can't help you.
That is crazy. You know, why, how could, I mean, that is beautiful. That was one of the, I mean, that was one of the worst things that was going on here.
And that was the law of the land all the way until 2010. I mean, that was the law of the land that, hey, you didn't have insurance at the time that you discovered that you had, this tumor. Sorry for you. I mean, that's just not what, the fundamentals of this country and what, we are as Americans was about.
It's not, and it's not what moves people. Selfishness and just thinking about me. Like, it's about other people. It's about, being able to share this place on this earth with each other and everyone at least having their basic needs.
Definitely.
We claim to be one of the greatest countries in the world. Why don't we have health care? Why is it free in France and Canada and all these different places that are supposed to be subpar compared to the great United States, right? And yet we got people here that are not being taken care of, like their basic needs of health conditions and things of that nature.
Yeah, and you would think that that's something that would touch the heart of everyone, but I guess
it depends on how you spin it, and what circles you're sitting around, and you become the group think. And you got people that's scared to come outside that box, right? Because they may have aspirations for one thing or another within their own party, right? So it's difficult how it's set up. It's difficult.
Definitely. Another thing that was, completely impressive, and I'm not going to speak about it in the past tense because I know it's still going on, is the way, young people rose up with the civil and human issues that we've had over the past year. And I kind of want to get into that with you because I just kind of want to know your thoughts in terms of the response of what happened to Michael Brown in Ferguson, the response to what happened to Eric Garner in New York. These situations where, it seemed to be really simple. Hey, look, there was an act of injustice here. And then we saw it go through our justice system and we saw the machinations there, and it just turned out to be, seemingly, we're not even going to pursue whether anything was wrong. That's it. We're not going to take anything to trial. We're not going to make anything public, at least initially, especially in Ferguson. Do you think that helps with the distrust and the disconnect with that youth, especially, racial minorities in general, have with government and with, I guess the public servants, the, police?
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's that was a bad, all those are just terrible situations, but I think that we've been, sleepwalking. Mm-hmm. I think these situations is kind of open our eyes, and it's like, man, we still got a long way to go still. We're still far away from equality. We're still far away from having, representation in all levels of office and authority. And this is something, and I believe this quote very, very, I believe this quote dearly in my heart, is that power breeds corruption, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. It's just something about putting people in power that it essentially can corrupt them, mm-hmm. right? And not to say, and not at all saying that, all police are corrupt. And I actually am very supportive of these, these police cameras, because it not only protects the citizen, but it also protects the police officer.
Absolutely.
And it also saves us money in the fact that we don't have these bogus cases coming to the, because a lot of, I know this happens a lot of times where people say, oh, police brutality, and they're not, it's not that at all, So I believe that protects both sides there. I believe it makes perfect sense. We got cameras everywhere else. Why wouldn't we have it on our law enforcement?
Definitely.
Where we run into these precarious situations on a daily basis?
Absolutely. And just the response, to what happened in Ferguson with the protest, it was admirable seeing, just, a collage of people out there. They weren't just black, they weren't, white, they were, Latinos, they were Asians. It's just a whole coalition of people who came out and said, you know what, we need to take a look at our justice system and the way things are handled. And a lot of them, were fresh-faced kids, man, just like it wasn't, with Selma in the 1960s and the civil rights
exactly.
movement. I mean, it's like
very
the youth
similar.
are the ones who were kind of, pushing this thing forward.
I was stunned at some of the similarities to when I watched the Selma movie to like right now.
Right. Right.
We get out and protest, and then this violence occurs, and there's violence on both sides, right? People tear gas and all these different things, and they bring these these awkward questions that we don't want to think about is what we do when your government or the powers that be are the bad guys.
Mm-hmm.
What do you do when that happens?
Mm-hmm.
How do you respond to that?
Mm-hmm.
And it's it's one of those things we don't think about, because you don't want to go through every day worried about this and that. You don't want to die from stress, right?
Right.
But it does bring these these questions. So what do you do when the people that's supposed to be good and protecting you turn
Right.
bad?
Right.
And it's it's a bad situation either way it goes, but there needs to be some change. So we got privatized prisons. How do we privatize prisons, right? How do we make that a business?
Yeah, reform.
There's something wrong. There's something wrong with that, and
Right.
there's and these private prisons are these people that own these places are feeding money to politicians on both aisles.
Right.
Let me not
Yeah,
on both
it's-
aisles. It's
yeah.
all across the board, and we're gonna have these issues until we're able to be at a place. And we talked about having a Democratic and Republican part being no parties. I think that the goal is to take the money out of politics. Take the money out of politics.
A little bit of the campaign finance reform that has been advocated for years, to where people can't go in and basically just buy an issue and just push out the the voice of the lay person who's just going about their lives and trying to make it a little bit better. Got this billionaire that comes in and can make more influence with one check than you could ever do knocking on doors and making phone calls.
And I don't believe that there can ever be a complete trust of a government that when we have money in politics, when there's money, it's like the motivator, like you need it. Like even if you have the best intentions, right? You come in here, I want to change things, we'll make things right. I'm gonna be real. I'm gonna be down there. I'll be down there with the people. But regardless, you need money in order to people to see you, to campaign and do all
Right,
these
you need
different
it,
things.
but-
Like there's no way around that, right? So and then you end up, all right, you get money from these people and these people, but they're expecting something with that. They're not giving you money just because they like to give money. They expect something from that.
Right.
And if you don't do what they expect, then God forbid,
Yeah, you're going to get primaried, and then you're probably going to, lose your job in office. And that was what was interesting about the Supreme Court decision. I believe it was 2009 when the Supreme Court decided to allow for corporations to start funding individual candidates.
I could not believe
and then
that
this
when-
whole thing of corporations are people too. When it's like, what are you doing? I mean, and it's fine. For an individual to go out and, the maximum that a person can give is nowhere near how much a corporation can give. You form these 527s, you form a PAC, and basically
Super
you can just pump
PACs,
in-
yeah.
Yeah, you pump in as much money as you want into it. And that's, one of the things that we were trying to, fight against is, hey, look, this is what the impact on our politics is going to be. It's going to allow these companies to come in and be able to shut out the little guy. And the little guy is the one who's out there and doesn't have the voice that these big corporations have, because he doesn't have that, big, huge bank account behind them. And, it creates an imbalance in the
You
system.
get ingenuine politicians that are just puppets
Yeah.
that are just there for the TV and for the cameras and stuff, but they're really being moved by the people giving them money.
Right, and it was interesting because that's why Eric Cantor, the third-ranking Republican in the United States House of Representatives, lost his position. Is simply because he advocated for, in some ways, a little bit of immigration reform. So the person that ran against him came out and just hammered him with it. Oh, he's amnesty, amnesty, amnesty. Bam, he was gone. So even if you, slightly try to, okay, let me take a look at the other side, a person can come in who's well-funded and boom, you're out. So you really have a disincentive a little bit to kind of, buck the system a little bit or try to get something really done with somebody on the other side of the house, especially on the Republican side, because it got to be pretty cutthroat in these last, few years. It's, line item. You better agree with this, 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 and this. And if you don't agree with every single one of these,
We're taking you out.
we're taking you out.
Yeah.
It's longer.
Well, that's self-destruction. I mean, the party's destroying itself in that way. But I don't know these past elections. I say that, but
Yeah, we're seeing it because it's cyclical, and that was one of the things that was funny about this last election. It's like, the Republicans took over the Senate, and they took over, and they increased their majorities in the House. And, I was, conversing with somebody, and I said, can you name me one thing that the Republicans had done in the United States House of Representatives in the past 2 years that was of note. And the only thing that they can come up with is they shut down the government. Yet they were amazingly rewarded for it in the election. And I'm like, this is because they're not doing anything, you know, and yeah, I mean,
a lot of people blame that on the Democratic Party, from a lot of people alienating themselves from Obama during that election. I mean, you know, you take away your foundation there. That, I mean, what do you? I mean, there's going to be a lot of ideas of what went wrong, I guess, in the last election. But yeah, definitely.
Yeah, that does create a kind of a rift in the system, to where, you know, if you don't take the money out of it and take that financial influence out of it and allow somebody to at least have coffee with somebody from the other party and not worry about getting primary, you're just going to be seeing, you know, these things just continue to, you know, be in a stalemate, Congress after Congress after Congress, no matter who takes the White House.
No matter who, yeah. I mean, I don't. These are hard questions, right? These are challenging. If there are easy answers to these questions, then they would be done, right? And there wouldn't be so much controversy and argument between them.
Definitely.
So, I mean, I don't believe anything's just so clear cut, but definitely one thing's for sure: money in politics is no good.
It has to be regulated. We have fought for it to be regulated, and you know, for some reason, you know, people just, you know, don't want to, you know, hear the other side of that, but.
You don't want to lose their money.
Right.
Why,
exactly.
Why
exactly.
would
You can't.
You want me to take a pay cut?
Exactly. It's against your self-interest.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense.
You're absolutely correct. One of the other things, before we completely leave the Ferguson, Cleveland, and New York situations, is I wanted to ask, and is there? Do you feel, because obviously, you know, you've been elected, you know, president of your student government. I mean, you know, obviously you're, you know, gonna be super successful in life. I mean, you already are, and you know, half the time that it took me, I'm jealous. But is there a responsibility that we have to take as racial minorities that maybe we have not done as good a job at as we should? In other words, I guess what I'm getting at is there a responsibility on our side to, or do you feel that there's a responsibility on our side to, you know, take care of a few things in our own family, you know, before we, you know, try to, you know, change a system that's obviously slanted. But, you know, obviously we're still seeing situations where, you know, a black man is still more likely to get killed by another black man than any other group. We're still in a situation where we've got, you know, too many of our young men. Now our women are stepping up, you know, minority women are stepping up, and they are graduating from colleges at record rates, but we still have black men kind of lagging in, you know, going to college and graduating. You know, what is the responsibility that racial minorities have in terms of fixing what's going on in their own house?
Oh yeah, I mean, it definitely starts with the families and breaking that curse, right?
Yeah.
You know, a lot of people, you know, myself, I grew up without a father, you know, single parent household, and that has a dramatic effect on people, regardless, you know, of how strong the person is or whatever. It was meant for you know, to have a father and a mother, and because there's different things you need to learn. There's different things you need to know. And there's different notes that they touch in your soul, right? And definitely, I mean, just start with the family, you know. And there is a responsibility. There's responsibility. Everybody should be responsible for their families. And I believe in it. When everybody, you know, is responsible within their own family, then things kind of progress from there and become better. You know, one child at a time, one family at a time, right? You know, with the culture, with the music, and these different ideas, negative, a lot of them negative, that are thrown about, and you know, just lifted up for these negative things, like, you know, drug dealing and using drugs and sleeping with a bunch of women and stuff like that. And you know, it's hard. You know, it's really hard. So what we have now is we have you know, single parent homes. We got single parent households. We got, you know, kids that don't have their fathers, and they need role models. You know, if there's no father in the house, you're gonna find somebody that's a father figure. If it's your neighbor, your best friend, or somebody on TV.
Somebody on TV speaking.
Yeah, somebody on exactly.
Radio. Yeah.
So you start to admire, because you don't have, when you have a father, you have somebody that's like, okay, I have someone to model after, right? This is something I want to model. But when you don't have that, or a mother, then you start to model after these other people, and people that seem popular amongst other people. So and so with this popularity and all that, you drive to that, and then you start to have these different ideas and distrust for the government, and distrust for police. F the police and all these different things, and you hear in the music, and it affects you. And to say it doesn't affect you is being naive. If you say something over and over in your head again, if I sit in your ear and say something over and over and over in your head, that's gonna affect you.
Right. You have people where it's going to get in.
And it's music.
Yeah.
It's music. It's made for you to remember. It's made to play in your head over and over again. Like, I wake up, there's sometimes I can't get songs out of my head. Have you ever had a song?
Yes.
You could get
I have one in my head right now.
Exactly.
I won't say it on public airways, but I was listening to it on the way over to the studio. Yeah.
However slight it affects you, there is an effect there.
Right.
And then not only that, it's perception from outside races and stuff too, right? Mm-hmm. And these stigmas and things that they place on people, and it's unfortunate. And but we always try to find shortcuts to thinking, right? You see this chair here. We don't, we see it as a chair, right? And we see another one. It may be different, but still a chair. We put things in these categories so we can better understand them, mm-hmm. and we don't have to, because there'd be millions of things. You couldn't think of all these different things, and that's kind of the same case with the stigmas. They try to put people in groups and categories in order to I guess to speed their thinking. So right. It's like they want an instant thought. It's like, oh, category, got you.
Right.
He's a danger. He's going to try to rob me or something.
Right.
Category.
Right.
This person, and we do the same thing.
Yeah.
You see a African American, see a white guy with a cowboy hat. Oh, there goes the Ku Klux Klan right over there. I can see that.
You have these things, or even in certain situations like we were talking about earlier, where you'll see, a police officer, and you'll immediately, have a negative connotation. He must be after me or whatever, not knowing that 90% of all police officers are great at their jobs, good, decent people. But if you have that stigma in your head, there's somebody that's after me, then you're probably not going to, respond to them well, and then it just makes the situation all the worse.
That was a good thing that was brought up before us, and I don't remember who originally mentioned this when all this, these things started happening. It was like, why is it in our culture to have an automatic distrust for the police?
Exactly.
That is
deep. That is really, unbelievable.
Really deep.
It is. It is.
This is people that are supposed to serve and protect and be for you and help, save your life or protect you when things
and 90% of them are. And 90% of them.
And the first thought is negative. I got to do this, or they're gonna beat me, or they're gonna do
right.
something.
You immediately have
these thoughts,
things.
and our bias is there.
And that's what I hated so much about the two officers in New York. It was just terrible. Officers Lou and Ramos, who were sitting out there, and they were doing their job protecting people, and this idiot comes up and and does what he does, and it's like, what made you think that just because you had these two gentlemen in the uniform, that they were all of a sudden automatically your enemy? It's just idiot thinking. But you're absolutely right. It's about being able to sift through the noise and actually get an understanding and stepping out from group thinking. Certainly strong families help that. Listening to balancing. Because I don't, you can listen to, Bobby Shmurda, it's fine. You can listen
what it is, right?
You can listen to that, and that's fine. But you also want to,
because it's in all music. I mean, there's negative stuff in all music, right? And poetry and books and all these different things. So it's just a thought, right?
Now you joined us tonight, and I really so much appreciate you doing that. But you had something, going on. So he's joining us, basically. He's double parked tonight. So,
yeah, we did the homeless count. We do the yearly homeless count with the Coalition for the Homeless at University of Houston downtown. We're doing partnership and doing some research on homeless youth, and finding, because the numbers that are being reported, we find them to be a little inaccurate. Like, they're small. We feel like there's more homeless youth out there, but it's just hard to track them, right? Because they move differently and separately from like the older homeless population. So yeah. So anyways, we're doing that. We're conducting some research today on that and trying to get some answers and I mean try to help some people.
It's an outstanding thing, man. Do you yourself have any political aspirations? I mean, I know you've already run a successful campaign because you're the president of the student government at the University of Houston downtown. I mean, is that something that's in your head that's probably like, maybe that's something that I'll look at one day, or don't come take my job.
Yeah.
Don't come take my job. Man.
No, I really just want to tackle social issues and in the system as it stands. Like I said, I don't want to be a puppet, and I do believe power corrupts, and I'm not too high and mighty to think that I can't be put in these situations and have these these conflicts, and it's like, oh well, I'm trying to do a greater good, and then it's like the means justify the ends type of thinking, right? I think I'd rather just tackle it from the outside and mobilize troops and get people together, rally together to try to make change, effective change, without the restraints of these big businesses and things that have you by the rope with the money.
Definitely. Well, we need you out there, man. I mean, we need people, who are going down and doing it, through, office holders and through politics, and then you also need troops on the ground, guys out there who are taking on homeless youth projects like you are, and it's just an excellent thing to undertake. I mean, it's admirable that we have people in leadership who actually feel that connection, between I'm a student, I'm here, I'm intending to get a pretty good job and live a pretty good life, but I'm also connected with the guy out there on the street who's the same age as me, but my fate is tied with his. If I my ship rises, I gotta pull him up too. You gotta have that. So.
And that's like the mantra of University of Houston downtown. I really believe in being engaged with the community. They try to push students to these high impact learning opportunities, high impact learning opportunities where it's one thing to read something in a book, right?
Yes.
And to be taught in a class, but it's another thing altogether. It's when you see an individual in that person, and you see yourself in that person, and you see what they're going through and they're struggling. It builds passion. And I believe when people can identify their passion, everything else becomes easy.
Absolutely.
Everything else becomes easy. You find your passion, you're aligned with it, and that's like your purpose.
Yeah. And I know, listen, I know a lot of people at the University of Houston downtown. I have a lot of friends that are alumni, and I have a lot of people that I know that are currently attending. I can tell you, you guys did a great job in electing this man as president of the Student Government Association. He's a great representative of you all, and I appreciate, you stopping by tonight, man. I appreciate you being here.
Oh, thank you. It was a pleasure.
You're fantastic, man. This is great. I got to have him back. I am going to have him back, people. Trust me, I'm going to do that. Who you got in the Super Bowl?
Oh, I have to go. Yeah, I gotta go with the.
Seattle, or
Seattle. I gotta go with Seattle.
Gotta go with those Hawks.
Brady, like I said, I didn't like the Bulls back then.
Yeah,
Brady got the Bulls, and then they're cheating too and stuff. The flaking balls. I can't.
Don't get mad. New England fans, do not.
Sorry,
get
I'm
mad.
just telling the truth.
Hey, that's how it is, guys.
No, they're great. They're good football. Both teams are really good.
It should be a good game.
Yeah, it should be great.
Hey, this is John Locke, president of the Student Government Association at the University of Houston downtown. This has been another great production tonight of Public Affairs, Public Access. I was supposed to have Terrence Bolden. I'm going to be looking for you, man, and I'm going to have you on at a later date, but we had a great conversation tonight, and please give me your emails, give me your calls. So we want to thank the people over at Houston Media Source for an absolutely great program. Thank you very much, and have a great evening.